in many cases, governments over decades have outsourced their strategic imperatives to unelected bureaucratic bodies like the United Nations, who love to give us pious lectures about what we should be doing when we're a better global citizen than many who deliver those lectures. Does Advance Australia have a position on the United Nations?
Oh my goodness. Our members, I don't think our members hate anything more than the UN, except for maybe the ABC, which come in as a close second. Like you say, these guys are unelected, and all we ever get is lectured by them when we can name an endless stream of other countries with massive human rights abuses. Here we are talking about China, and yet Australia keeps getting whipped over the years about all sorts. Absolutely no time for them. Our almost 60,000 strong members now are very, very, very vocal about the fact that we should ditch Paris and absolutely disassociate with the UN. They all heard from so many members who wanted us to follow in President Trump's footsteps and defund the World Health Organization, which of course is the UN's sister organisation after the debacle that they've been over this pandemic. So that's our stance in a nutshell. We're the voice of mainstream Australia, and I don't think you'll find many mainstream Australians that have got 2 minutes for the UN.
It's music to my ears, but of course there are political imperatives around it, and walking away from the UN is probably not an achievable task. But James McGrath, surely there are some things that we can do to improve or review the status that we currently have. I mean, I for one am tired of being lectured by the Greens normally, who hold up the latest UN vote or some statement and belt us around the head with it, even though that statement has been made by a bunch of people whom it applies to even more stringently. They are anti-Semitic in many instances. The Arab nations and the African nations gang up just to seek more money out of the West. It doesn't seem to be working for us. What can we do? What should we be doing with the United Nations at the moment, James McGrath?
Well, I'm hoping that some of the listeners out there might be able to drop us an email and tell us, is there a part of the United Nations that really does work? Because while you was talking, I was trying to rack my brain and think of a part that actually works. And it comes down to that key question, is it fit for purpose? And if it was, for example, a state body or a federal body, we'd probably have a Royal Commission into it, in terms of how it is operating, and in terms of the millions of dollars that we send across to the United Nations. I think there might be some good that happens somewhere. The UN peacekeepers, for example, but that can be done on a regional basis. But all these other bodies that are around the shop, with all those acronyms that come out of a can of alphabet soup, I'm with Liz on this one. I just don't know what it does. Like, it's a giant big talking shop that allows people from countries who don't share the values that unite us as Australians to come and lecture us and tell us about how we treat ourselves. We are a liberal democracy here in Australia. If we don't like how it is, you can vote people out. And you've got people from the stands and all these other weird republics around the place come off it. It really doesn't pass the pub test if the pub happened to be opened.
Well, James, I happen to agree with you because for my sins, in fact, it was a great honour, actually. I was sent to the United Nations by the Parliament. They wanted to get rid of me and they thought I might be able to destroy it, I suspect, but it didn't work out like that. But you make a really good point. There's a lot of talk fests that go on over there. And I always previously thought the National Security Council or International Security Council was a very, very important body because it could avert war. And after all, that was what the United Nations was all about. But Jim Molan, as a military man, is it fit for purpose, as James McGrath is questioning?
No, I don't think it is fit for purpose. It is only as good as, in relation to peacekeeping, as to what member countries are willing to put in. And quite often member countries won't put in, or those that do put in and are paid by the United Nations for the troops they deploy are substandard anyhow. But my view is slightly different than Liz and James. I reckon we should use it. and I don't see any immediate sense of pulling out of it from the government at the moment. I don't have any real faith in it, except for the fact that until we become independently strong and powerful across all the aspects of national power, then we should use the United Nations. And we've seen interesting use being made of it. There is a role for talkfest. There is a role for achieving moral superiority. There is a role for carrying your own people with you in a conflict. But I would only do that for the purpose of us achieving some time in which we can become very, very strong. And we're not strong at the moment in a number of ways, and the four of us have just been talking about those ways. So I'd keep playing the UN game until we got strong.